Skelski for the home team, and I'm with Dawn Coffee today from Yes, and we're talking about lead in homes in regards to water and paint. So the biggest one is the water right now. That's the hot button. So I know you've been active in South Bend with some of that over there, and of course the whole thing that happened up in Flint, Michigan, that kind of created the wave of being concerned about lead in water. So
it did.
What's going on with South Bend and
Sure.
all of that?
It's unfortunate that those things happen, like up in Flint, but the good that has come out of that, and more people are aware now that lead can be a problem even in city water. And it's something that people don't often think about, testing their city water, and that would be the only contaminant that we would want to test for. So we make it clear, the disclosure is that the supply coming into your house from your municipality is safe. They test that all the time. Okay, so we don't have to worry about bacteria or nitrates or arsenic or anything like that. But lead, on the other hand, is something that can change once the city supply is in your home, and your pipes, okay, could have lead in them or lead solder in the fixtures. Also, that cause the lead levels to be high, and people won't know that unless they test for it.
Sure. So this kind of started, people want to know how the lead got in the pipes. Well, what happened is these are only in older homes. Mm-hmm. They're not in new construction homes or
before 1986, the EPA will tell you.
Right. But really, a lot of these homes were built back in like the 20s or the 30s, mm-hmm. or even older, like in the 1800s. And those back then, they just didn't think about, they had no evidence that lead was bad. So a lot of these are just pipes that were built from way back then, mm-hmm. and there's just some natural deterioration that happens with, mm-hmm. that, right?
Yeah, especially with hot water. So hot water, when the pipes are heated up, are going to cause the metal to corrode at a higher rate and cause higher levels of contamination in the water then.
Okay. So if you test over there and they find lead in the water, what's the remedy for it? What are they doing over there?
Reverse osmosis is still always your best option besides bottled water. However, if you don't want to do any of those things, you could certainly avoid the lead by running your cold tap in the kitchen for 5 minutes and flush it out. And that's, the EPA does suggest doing that. So to get by, if you don't want to install a reverse osmosis, you can do that.
Or replace all the pipes.
Well, nobody's going to do that. Okay, that's definitely not
right.
something we ever want to talk about in a real
right.
estate transaction for sure.
Right.
So simple reverse osmosis under the kitchen sink, a few $100s. You can have great water all the time. It tastes a little better, I think, than municipal water too, but you do have to change the filters. It's only good for, as long as you're changing your filters every 6 months. However, for the kitchen sink part of running the water for 5 minutes, I don't run the water for 5 minutes before I go drink it or cook with it. And so to have that system under the kitchen sink is a good idea.
Yeah. So just one more reason to have a reverse osmosis system.
Sure.
Because there's been countless number of reasons that we've mm-hmm. talked about through our lunch chats about how the advantage of having a reverse osmosis system, even if you're on city water. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize there's still additives and stuff in the water that
right.
you might want to get
filter out.
Yeah.
I think that it's cheaper than bottled water. I know a lot of people are into bottled water, so reverse osmosis is cheaper than that. And let's talk about how many houses we see in the city that have this as a problem in the water. We did an experiment last summer that we did 20 houses in the city, and we had 6 of those test with high lead.
Wow. And
so I think that the numbers are there. You won't know unless you test. A test to walk into any local lab is going to be around the $30 range. It's not that bad to find out. You don't need a special bottle.
Oh, that's
you
good.
can put it in a baggie or any bottle.
Yeah, because if it's there, it's there.
Right. Yeah. So.
Wow. And so $30, that's fairly inexpensive for most
sure.
people.
Mm-hmm.
And 6 out of 20, that's 30% of the homes that you tested. I mean, it's a small sample size, but still 30% is 30%.
Yeah, and when you're talking about all the things health effects wise that we know happens from high lead, you're talking about developmental disorders in the kids today. Everyone wants to know why there's so much, slower learning or autism or attention deficit, and you can even have kidney problems from things like this. There's so many health effects if you look them up on the internet with the EPA that lists there. It's a lot of developmental stuff, a lot of things with kids.
So the other thing, and this has been around for quite a while. I mean, lead in the water is kind of a new thing, or maybe not a new thing, but it
Awareness
was really
is new.
brought out here over the last couple of years. But the lead in paint and lead in the houses, that's a whole other issue that's been around for a while. So you do testing for that, and how easy or how difficult is it to do lead-based paint testing in houses?
What we'd like to say about that is it's really a common sense issue. Okay, so lead paint is going to be in your house if your home was built before 1978, unless it's been stripped down to original wood. So you can paint over it, but somewhere underneath those layers there will be lead found, and we almost always find it if we are testing for it. But the most important thing you need to know is to keep your home intact maintenance-wise when it comes to this paint. So if you see something starting to blister, flake, chip, you're going to want to scrape that, dispose of those chips, and repaint over it so you don't have flakes coming out. And be careful with windows, opening, closing windows, doors, cabinets, maybe some built-ins in your older home. That's going to cause friction, and the lead dust does go in the air, and it is harmful. So same sort of lead disorders, health effect wise, it can be dangerous. I think it's been in the news media a lot lately, in particular neighborhoods where deterioration, is a problem, where people aren't taking care of the homes as well or updating them as fast as maybe other neighborhoods. And so it's really all about just preventative maintenance and keeping things intact.
And like you were saying with the windows and the doors, that's kind of like the most common area, it seems like, where the kids can get the paint chips and the dust or inhale and stuff like that. I remember as a kid always being told, "Don't you eat these paint chips," and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay.
And that seems like common sense.
As a kid, that always
right?
made me want to eat a paint chip, but I didn't. But
things you can do. I know there are a lot of older homes that are in historical neighborhoods that people really enjoy. They want to keep that preserved with the original windows and such, and it's just nice because the history of the home. And you can do that. You can just you can still use those windows and doors, but wet wipe down with a cloth to keep the dust out.
And then the other thing that we've always told people, because sometimes on a FHA loan it'll come up, is peeling and chip paint on a house that was built in like 1950 or something. So you have to go out, and if you're going to scrape and repaint and all that stuff, make sure you put a good cover down on the a tarp or whatever on the ground or on the floor. And then we've always even told people to even use like a shop vac, and
so it doesn't go in the soil, right?
Yeah,
you don't want to contaminate the soil. They have done testing, the health department around homes, and saw high levels of lead in the soil from just that.
Sure. So how much is it to test for lead paint?
Yeah, it's around the $100 range, and that's really more like a yes or no. It is a written report with photos, and there are a good 6 or more spots tested in the home, but it's really a yes or no, an informational thing. You can certainly have a big environmental firm come out for a big full assessment EPA thing, and you can spend several hundred up to even $1,000 for something like that. That gets very conclusive about the percentage of lead paint, how many levels down, and things like that. I don't know that that's always necessary.
Yeah.
It's kind of overkill, in my opinion, that I just need to know what's on the outermost layer, what's going to be most dangerous to me now, what do I need to take care of. And again, it's common sense, is if you see it's deteriorating, you do need to take care of it.
And that's what's kind of frustrating on the realtor side of it, is on like getting a HUD home. Like if we're trying to do a HUD purchase, the HUD will actually do that real extensive kind of testing, and then they will require it to be fixed. So on some of these HUD homes, I mean, there was one in Mishawaka that I was looking at with a buyer here about 2 months ago, and it had, I think it was $21,000 worth of lead-based paint that HUD was going to require get fixed before they could sell it to an FHA buyer.
Yeah.
So I mean that's going. I mean I get it, but that's going a little above and beyond too,
Yeah.
because they wanted everything stripped down to the wood.
Right.
And that's pretty rough.
Yeah, it very. So we try to tell people, if you love the house, buy the house. Make sure you understand how to keep your family safe.
Encapsulate it.
Yes, encapsulate it, keep things intact. That's what we mean by that. Use the wet cloth to dust up around the windows to keep lead dust down. That's the best way to keep your family safe.
And don't eat peat chips.
Right, don't eat peat chips.
All right, well, I think that's probably about all we have for lead-based paint and lead in water, unless you have anything else to add.
Thank you for having us.
And thanks again, and we always love having Dawn on here. So
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you very much,
Bye,
and
guys.
see you next week. Bye.